Hello and welcome to Network Africa with me, Cynthia Are. Now we begin as regards the Islamic State. The group has hit a new low by carrying out the beheadings on Egyptian Coptic Christians. In understandable retaliation, Egypt says it has bombed Islamic State targets in Libya hours after the group published videos showing the apparent beheadings of the 21 Egyptian Christians. The dawn strikes are said to have targeted camps, training sites and weapons storage areas. Libyan officials said Egypt had hit targets in the militant-held city of Derna in coordination with Libya. The kidnapped Egyptian workers, all Coptic Christians, were seized in separate incidents in December and January from the coastal town of Sirte in eastern Libya under the control of Islamist groups. The 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians who'd gone to Libya in search of jobs were marched to a beach, forced to kneel, and then beheaded. Egypt responded by bombing Islamic State targets inside of Libya. The headlines on several newspapers called for revenge. Cairo resident Mohsen Ali said the news of the apparent beheadings left him sleepless.
I swear, this is a criminal terrorist act done by people who have absolutely nothing to do with religion. And really, personally, I didn't sleep last night. I didn't sleep last night after what happened. All Egyptians couldn't sleep. And I am very happy with Sisi's reaction. We're all behind him, whatever he does against those infidels.
Egypt's Air Force bombed Islamic State targets inside of Libya on Monday. That's the first time Egypt confirmed launching airstrikes against the group, suggesting President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is ready to escalate his battle against the militants. Mohammed Wagdi was worried that this type of terrorism makes Islam look bad.
It gives the whole world a horrible and disgusting image of Islam and Arab countries. This is imposed on us by foreign countries, or terrorist groups, to be more specific, or foreign personal interests, whoever is behind it, but their personal interests, the interests of some countries at the expense of other countries.
Up until now, Egypt has not taken part directly in the US-led airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Iraq and Syria, focusing instead on the increasingly complex insurgency within its own borders. Well, now that the Islamic State has clearly not become just a threat to Iraq and Syria, as was originally the case, but now a global threat, particularly in view of their recent activities in Libya, the Libyan Prime Minister is calling on the West to launch airstrikes to defeat the militants. It's especially important to the Prime Minister because the militants have succeeded in driving the Libyan government out of the capital. Speaking hours before Egypt bombed Islamic State targets in Libya in retaliation after militants said they had beheaded 21 Egyptian Christians, the Prime Minister Abdullah Al-Tini made a plea for Western military intervention in a country rapidly slipping into chaos. The North African country is in chaos as two rival governments and parliaments allied to separate armed factions fight for territory 4 years after NATO warplanes helped topple dictator Muammar Gaddafi. A Libyan Air Force commander also said 40 to 50 militants were killed in the Libyan-Egyptian strikes. Joining us for more on the activities of the Islamic State is the Voice of America's Heather Muir, who is in Cairo. Heather, thank you so much for speaking with us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Now, why is the Islamic State targeting Egyptian Christians this time around?
Well, the language in the video was sectarian language, not dissimilar to language they've used against Shia or Western foreign aid workers or Western journalists in Iraq and Syria.
Well, would you say that the solution is actually the West carrying out more airstrikes, as was suggested by the Libyan Prime Minister?
I certainly think the Libyans need help in fighting the Islamic State. They've been fighting for 7 months now, or maybe 9 months, and so far it hasn't been that successful. The Islamic State has continued to gain ground in Libya this entire time. Although analysts were telling me today that if Egypt was more involved, it could be very helpful. Egypt has one of the most powerful and strongest militaries in this region.
Now, do we anticipate seeing reprisal attacks now that Egypt has carried out airstrikes, or that's according to what was said by the Egyptian president?
I think anything can happen with the Islamic State. There's been surprise after surprise since they started gaining power at the beginning of last year. I do expect that most people fear reprisal attacks coming in the coming weeks.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Heather Muir. We certainly appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Well, this time last week, we brought you news concerning another case of illegal migration gone bad in which about 200 to 300 people lost their lives. This week, the situation is a lot worse. The Italian Coast Guard has rescued more than 2,000 migrants in a major operation off the Libyan coast, and that's 10 times the number of cases in a week. The latest rescue effort on Sunday involved a plane, 4 Coast Guard ships, 2 tugboats and a Navy vessel. We also understand that the migrants had been aboard 12 boats and had been taken to Italy.
Many of the migrants were wrapped in thermal blankets as they disembarked the Coast Guard vessel. No details of the number or the origin of the migrants were immediately available. The Italian Coast Guard on Sunday, February 15, said officers went to the rescue of at least 1,000 migrants in difficulty in the sea between Europe and North Africa, the third operation of its kind in as many days. The Coast Guard said it had plucked more than 130 people from 2 rubber boats about 180 kilometers south of Lampedusa so far and was working to save 8 more vessels. Better weather since last week has encouraged migrants to make the perilous journey from North Africa, where a breakdown of order in Libya has made it almost impossible to police the traffickers who pack people onto rickety boats. Italy's Transport Minister Maurizio Lupi confirmed that during the rescue, a Coast Guard cutter was approached by a speedboat carrying 4 people armed with Kalashnikov rifles who menaced the mariners. The armed police wanted to take back and rescue the boat from which the migrants had been rescued. More than 300 people died last week trying to make the crossing, which claimed 3,500 lives last year, even before Italy closed its Mare Nostrum search and rescue mission in December. The Coast Guard ship Virilio and several cutters were sent to Sunday's rescue, along with 4 merchant ships and 2 tugboats, which were diverted to join the operation. Italy's Transport Minister Maurizio Lupi also confirmed 1 Navy ship, 2 police patrol ships, and a Maltese vessel had also been mobilized. Lupi repeated Prime Minister Matteo Renzi's call for intervention in Libya to, as he put it, adequately address this drama.
Joining us now via telephone is a senior immigration lawyer. That's Olumide Adewumi with Law and Visas. Mr. Adewumi, thank you so much for speaking with us on Network Africa. We'll have to take a quick break now, but when we come back, we'll try our best to reconnect with Olumide Adewumi, and we'll also bring you updates concerning Obasanjo's resignation from the People's Democratic Party. Please stay with us.